everyone. Welcome to episode 2, where I welcome you into my basement dye dungeon and you follow along while I do some dyeing. My name's Robin. I am the main creative hoodlum behind Pirate Robin, and I predominantly dye cotton floss for those cross stitchers out there. But I also do yarn, and that's how I started. So we're definitely gonna, I'm one of, well, I would say one of a few dyers, indie dyers who says yes to animal fibers and yes to plant fibers. Generally dyers choose animal fibers, and there is a reason. It's called rinsing, as in less, basically none rinsing. And so as I see behind the camera, it's a pile of things that I need to rinse, a pile of cotton floss that I need to rinse. And I'm like, ugh, I'm putting it off. So we're doing this video, right? So I put off that rinsing, but I have to do it today. So yes, welcome. We're gonna go behind the scenes. If you are new to dyeing, you know, I'm gonna go a little bit into amounts. So like amount of dye per water, amount of goods, but not really. This is like intro, welcoming you in. You can just watch how I do it. I think maybe later I'll do a tutorial, but I know for me, when I was learning to dye animal fibers, because that's actually not what I started with, I liked watching videos that I needed some time to like, okay, that's how, you know, she did it. Oh, okay, that's how they did it. Okay, and I just needed to watch somebody over and over and over and over before I got up the courage to do it myself. So if I'm that for you, awesome. Okay, so today we're gonna dye some animal fibers. Last week we did cotton, totally awesome, new. Today, not new, I am dyeing up my colorway called Oregon Loves You, because Oregon loves you. And I've done this many times. And so I noticed I was running low on silk floss. So I'm gonna dye up some silk floss. The process for animal fibers is very different from the process for plant fibers. So every time you dye, you have to prep your fibers. And you want to open up that fiber. You want to remove dirt, open up that fiber, get it ready to accept dye in a chemically bonded way. And different dyes use different fixatives, for a better word. The word is mordant, but I think that's not really an approachable word. Whatever. If you want, the actual word is mordant. So it's the thing that really seals the deal. So with cotton fibers, that is, depending on the dye, for the dyes I use, it's soda ash. For the most part, it's soda ash. And so you are cleaning your fiber, getting all that dirt off, you're soaking it in soda ash, it's opening up the fiber, and then boom, you're hitting it with some dye, letting it set, you know, rinsing it for days. Not days, but it feels like days. I mean, basically it's days. And then that's cotton. It's a cold process. So, you know, you're not boiling things, you're not heating it up. And those dyes are called fiber reactive dyes. Great, love it. Woo! We're not doing that today. So today we're gonna do protein fibers, right? So that's plant. Now we're doing protein, but it's similar. So I wash the fibers, or I have to, well, I was gonna say I have to wash them less. That's a fat lie. With wool, I often have to wash them less. I soak them, and then but with silk, well, it's spit, right? It's worm spit, and it's nasty. And in fact, I was dyeing silk, and I was just kind of getting mixed results, and it wasn't as vibrant as I wanted it to be. And I was like, what am I doing? And there's a local dyer that I love how she suffers my questions sometimes. It's just good to have someone to bounce off ideas. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, we talk through things while you're doing this. Yes, this, yes. And she's like, I don't know. And then she goes, oh, how are you prepping your fibers? And I was like, oh, you're right. It has to be how I'm prepping my fibers. I'm not prepping them as well. I'm not removing that dirt and layer so that dye can chemically bond. It's less dye is chemically bonding. And so now I do a different process. I boil. We boil. And it's gross and it smells. It's like an acrid kind of smell. It's spit. I don't know I can't make it better. So it's like an hour and a half. I'm at a very low, basically not boil, very low heat. And it's sitting there. It's thinking about what it's done. We're removing as much of that spit as we can, and some of that dirt. And so then I have a ratio of size of pan to amount of fiber in there to amount of water to amount of dye. And that gives me consistent results because that's who I am, right? I am not just dyeing this for me for fun. I need to have repeatable colorways because I'm selling it. And so, there should be a little bit of difference between dye lots, but not like a huge difference. To me, that's not appropriate. Or it's not my goal, right? Because you want to rely on me for consistency and other indie dyers. So everything is, a bit more regimented because that's what I need to do. You don't have to be regimented. You can just start dumping stuff in. Literally, allow your ancestors to tell you when to stop. Yeah, because you know what? That is going to look so cool. It might not be what you mean it to be, but it's going to be cool. So I'm going to show that process. We're going to dye it up, and you can see in the pan. So I'm going to have 3 skeins of wool, and what I do is I'll prep things the night before, and then kind of the morning I'll start boiling the silk, and then when it's ready, give it a rinse, and then I start the dye process. So I'll have 3 skeins of that wool and nylon. It's a sock yarn, and then 1 skein of silk. And that works fine for me. A lot of times I try not to have too much difference in the pan. Like you wouldn't want to have a bulky weight and a fingering weight because they accept the dye in different ways. And so you're really gonna have that fingering weight is gonna look a lot different to a pan full of fingering weight yarn, if that makes sense. So we don't really mix a lot of different bases together, but it's about the size of fingering weight. It works. I've tried it before, and I know that my process yields like consistent results. So I will flip this camera around and let's start dyeing. All right, it's voiceover time. Here I'm taking the silk and I'm putting it into soak in some soap. We're trying to do all that we can do to get the nasty off the silk. I've heated it up. Here you can see it in a pan. It's hot, steaming, so I'm letting it cool down. It's been almost boiling for an hour and a half. Really, we're just trying to strip all of the nasty off of it. I'm going to prep my dye bath. So I'm using, I think it's a quart of water. And I'm going to add in my fibers. This is 1 skein of fingering weight wool. It's a merino nylon blend. And here's number 2. Okay, so this is like the second or third audio I've done because the first recording mysteriously deleted itself. It was like, no. But what I found in the first recording is that I apparently love to roast myself or, just question, what are my hands doing? What even am I doing right now? And I laughed and laughed. So I guess you get more of that this time around. Okay, so we got 3 skeins of wool and 1 skein of silk. You can see it looks different. That was me pouring on the citric acid. I'm going to use 2 cups of, I mix up my citric acid, and so I use 2 cups of it. Because when we want the dye to hit the fiber, we want it to strike pretty immediately. So the key with acid dyes and with protein fibers, right, animal fibers, the key is dye, acid, and heat. And those together cause that dye to chemically bond to the fiber. So you can see I'm wearing gloves. It's because it's hot and I don't want to burn myself, but I always do, and then I curse, but that's okay because I'm alone in my basement, my 100-year-old basement. So what I did is I started to heat up those fibers, and then I added in that citric acid, and then I put the dye. And so we want it to just strike and hold. But the other thing I love, and you can see I'm pointing out where the silk is compared to the others, but what I love is when the colors blend together. So some dyers do really low immersion, like not a lot of water. Some do tons of water. I'm kind of in the middle for this one. I like those colors to blend together. I like I just like the blends. And this is how I do speckles. I can measure out an amount of dry dye powder, and then I can use a little metal sieve and just kind of tap it around. Now you can see some of where it landed looks a little more splotchy, like a greater amount of dry dye powder hit that spot as opposed to another spot. Some dyers don't like that. I like it. I embrace it. That's kind of my style, so I'm okay with it. We let it set, heat it up. Oh, I think probably about 20 minutes, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. And look at that water. That water is clear now. All of the dye has just adhered to those fibers, and there's nothing left in the dye bath. This is the beauty of protein fibers, right? Those animal fibers, and dyeing. Just lovely. Okay, so that's me flipping the silk. Right there, there's the silk floss. Look at that, right? So cotton, it's not the case. You have lots of dye left over. You have to, rinse and rinse and rinse. But you can see, you can really tell in this acid dye bath, whether the colors have been, all soaked up or not. And we call that exhausted. So you have exhausted all the dye. So I'm going to add more, flipped it over, add more. There's one green. I'm going to add another green. And see how that like tendril of green just like is moving up the fibers. Oh, I love that. I love it so much. So when I was making this colorway, I really wanted it, I wanted it to represent like the just wet, just hardcore mythical forest that we have over here in Oregon, and it's just so much moss, so many trees. It's just wet. It's not a rainforest, level of wet, but it's very wet. Mushrooms. Did I ever say that? So many mushrooms. I just love it. And so I wanted this colorway to be kind of that, just tons of depths of green, to really show that. Also, I switched to the tongs because I burned my hands. How many years have I been dyeing? I should have just started with the tongs, but did I? No, I did not. No, I did not. That's fine. You know what? Hey, I'm a grown woman. I can burn my hands as many times as I want to, which I do. Okay, so there I've speckled on more dye powder. Oh, I just love it. It's this reddish brown, and it is so good. And then I let it sit. You can see it's still steaming. It's still pretty hot. And now this is after rinsing a little bit, after putting it through the spin dryer. So it's damp. It's not dry, but it's a little bit damp. And so I pulled out, this is a skein of cardamom, and it is the color that's created from that same dye powder that I used to speckle. But you can see that when I speckle it, it's super reddish. And when I just dye it a single color, it's a more, it's just a brown. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is, so this is the silk that I have in my hands. Also, look at what I just love fiber. I'm just touching it. Look at it. Look at this side. Look at that side. Look at this. We see the speckles, Robin. Move on. I mean, I could have edited this out of the video, but it's crack. I just can't. Look at it. Look at it. Because I'm going to break down this skein into smaller 10-yard skeins, I really want to make sure that the colors go all the way through, that the speckles go all the way through. Also, you can see how the colors are different when it's on silk versus on that merino nylon blend. Same on the darker side. See, so dyes, when you dye different bases, different fiber content, they look a little bit different. There's a little bit difference in the color. And so touch this skein. Look at this skein. This is wool. Look at it. Okay, past Robin. We got it. Yesterday, Robin. Look at all this stuff. Look at it. Look at it. Okay. But seriously, look at that. Look at that reddish brown speckle. It's what I was going for. I love it. I think it really conveys, the feeling of, Oregon. This is also a good way to compare colors, just to kind of twist them together, and you can see how they might look in a project. Okay, and we're done. Bye.